Uh, for more on Munich, Matthew Karnitschnig, he is joining us from Berlin. He is a journalist and Politico's chief Europe correspondent. Matthew, can you hear me? If you can, I know you've been listening in on our conversation. If you can add to this information that keeps coming in, I don't know what you're hearing there in Germany.
Well, at the moment, I think as we've just heard, it is a fairly chaotic situation. There's not a lot of clarity about what has happened, who the shooter is or shooters are. There is a report that there is a dead male at the scene, and some people are now saying this was likely the only shooter, but we don't have clarity on that. There were reports earlier that there were 3 men with long rifles walking around this shopping mall in the north of Munich, a popular spot for locals, in particular on a Friday evening. But all we know so far for sure is that there have been 8 people killed. We've seen the video of a man with a handgun standing in front of the McDonald's there. But it's really too early to say. The government has said very little. The Munich police have declared a terror alarm, and the city is now on lockdown across the city. They've closed the public transportation in the center of the city, and parts of the center of the city, which many people who have visited Munich will know well, are under complete lockdown. People have been told not to leave their apartments, not to go out at all, and I've heard personally from people who are holed up in shops and other places until the crisis passes.
Matthew, any response yet from Germany's government? We have not seen anything come from Chancellor Angela Merkel. Is that surprising? On the one hand, it is surprising because so many hours have passed. On the other hand, I think that they themselves are waiting for clarity here, that it really isn't clear what has happened, who's responsible for these attacks. There have been really conflicting reports about the shooter, the number of shooters, and so on. So I think that they're leaving it to the police, the local police there. They also have sent an anti-terror unit into Munich. It's called the GSG-9, which is Germany's anti-terror force, has been dispatched there. So I think they really are waiting for the situation to be resolved before they say anything to the public. That said, it is surprising that it has taken so long. I mean, we're now several hours. I think the first reports of the attack were around 6 p.m. German time. That's more than 5 hours ago, and it still isn't clear what the situation is, how many shooters there are, where they are, and how many people have died. So far, we have 8 confirmed dead.
Matt, Jim Spellman here in Washington. Given the attack on the train earlier this week and the other attacks in Europe recently, were police there in Germany on heightened alert? Was there more police presence out on the streets?
Well, I have to say, having traveled through Germany today myself, I did not notice any additional police on the streets or at the airports or at the train stations. I flew from Frankfurt to Berlin today and did not see any additional police. I wasn't even asked to show my passport at check-in, so I didn't have the impression that they were on any kind of terror alert, despite the recent attacks, both in Germany just a couple of days ago, where you had a young man attacking a group of Chinese tourists on that train, or the Nice attack just a few days ago. So I have to say that maybe they should have been, but I did not notice in my experience, either in Berlin or southern Germany, any additional police presence on the streets.
What is the mood there on the street, though? Are people in Germany concerned about this? It's been at the front of people's minds. I know it is here in the United States.
Well, it certainly has been something on people's minds for quite some time, because Germany hadn't
faced a major attack, unlike neighboring France, Belgium, and other countries. So there was a sense here that it was just a matter of time before something similar happened in Germany. Germany seems to have been lucky in dodging these kinds of attacks in the past. But if you look at the polls, there was just a poll out today showing that 70% of Germans expected this kind of attack to happen in the near future. And unfortunately, they have been proved to be right today.
You know, Matthew, that being said, and it's still too early to speculate, we don't even really know much about the gunman. What kind of fallout do you see from what happened there today? Obviously, fear across Europe with what has happened in other countries and cities. As you mentioned, Germany hosting the most number of refugees, Angela Merkel welcoming refugees, telling her whole country to welcome them. What do you think will happen next?
Well, I think that will really depend on who the attackers are. If it turns out that these attackers were refugees, that's clearly going to be a major political problem for Angela Merkel. Her entire policy on the refugees will have been discredited as a result. On the other hand, if the terrorists here are, as we've seen in Belgium and France, people who grew up in Germany or grew up in Europe, that's a completely different matter. So I think it will really depend on what the facts of this situation are. And as I say, it's completely unclear at the moment if these people are even terrorists, if this is terrorism, or if this is a local man run amok, as were the initial police reports here. That's how it was described. It's just a crazy man running around shooting people. So we'll just have to wait and see. And I think it'll be very important to look at the details, because I think generally the Germans would be, somewhat more forgiving towards Merkel in particular if these aren't refugees.
All right, Matthew Karnitschnig, Politico's chief Europe correspondent, joining us from Berlin. We thank you for your insight.